The most dangerous lie is the one you tell yourself about who you are and who you can still become. Her name was Helen, 52 years old, administrative coordinator at the same hospital for 24 years. Helen was good at her job. Everyone said so. Her manager, her colleagues, even patients, who somehow knew her name after just one visit. But good was not the same thing as fulfilled. For years, Helen had had a quiet thought that she never said out loud. I should have studied medicine, not as a doctor, not as a surgeon, as a physician assistant. She had wanted to at 28. But life got in the way. A marriage, 2 children, a mortgage. The years passed. The thought stayed. At 52, Helen sat at her kitchen table on a Tuesday evening and opened her laptop. She looked up physician assistant programs. She found one. She read the requirements. She did the math. If she started now, she would graduate at 55. She sat with that number for a long time. Then she told her husband, David. He looked at her. He said, "You want to go back to school at 52? His tone wasn't cruel, just genuinely surprised. Helen nodded. David said, "That's a lot." She told her daughter. Her daughter was 28. "Mom," she said, "that's a really long program. You'd be almost 56. Helen said. "I know." She told a colleague who had worked beside her for 12 years. The colleague meant well. She said, "Helen, at our age, are you sure?" Helen looked at her and said, "What age would be better?" The colleague didn't have an answer. Helen applied. She was accepted. The first day of class. She was the oldest person in the room by almost 20 years. She sat in the back, opened her notebook, and wrote the date. At the top of the page, September 14th. She looked at it for a moment. She thought, in 3 years, I will know things I don't know today. No matter how old I am, that is worth something. The program was harder than she expected. Not because she wasn't capable, but because she was doing it while working part-time, while managing a household, while fighting the voice in her own head that occasionally whispered, "You're too old for this." One night, at 11 p.m., sitting at her kitchen table, surrounded by textbooks, she called her sister Patricia. "Patricia, I don't know if I can do this." Patricia said, "You already are doing it. What more do you need?" Helen sat with that. She went back to the textbooks. If this story is hitting you, subscribe to Narrathex. New story every day. Year 2. Helen found her rhythm. She studied on weekends. She studied on her lunch breaks. She made friends with students half her age who called her the smartest one in the room. She didn't feel old. She felt awake. Year 3. She graduated. She was 55. She stood on that stage in her cap and gown and looked at David in the audience. His face. She would remember it for the rest of her life. Within 8 months, Helen had her own practice, a small clinic focused on older patients, people her age and older, who felt invisible in traditional medical settings. People who came in and saw her and immediately felt that they were at the right place because she was one of them. 5 years after that Tuesday evening, at the kitchen table, Helen is 57 and her clinic has a 3-month wait list. She still works at it every day, not because she has to, but because she chose it. Her daughter called her last year. She said, "Mom, I've been thinking about going back to school, but I'm worried." "It's too late," Helen said. "How old will you be when you finish?" Her daughter said. 32, Helen said. "And how old will you be if you don't?" Her daughter was quiet. Then she said, 32, Helen said. "Exactly. So let me ask you something. Is there something you have always wanted to do that you haven't started because of your age? A degree, a career, a business, a chapter of your life you think has already been written because the years will pass. Whether you start or not, the only question is what you will know and who you will be when they do. The age you are now is the youngest you will ever be for the rest of your life. Start now. This is Narrathex, where the story is the code, the lesson is the key. Subscribe and never miss another story.